Welcome back to Before the First Cast. We do have a guest this week, Mr. Bruce Callis. Welcome in, Bruce. It's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to have you on for a while. So, Bruce, for those who are watching and listening that don't know you, could you give us a little background of who you are?
Hey, Calvin. Sure. My name's Bruce Callis. I write for the Basscast. Do a month, one or two stories a month, plus the newsletter with Calvin, and I write also for our local newspaper here, and I do, of course, fishing reports. So something I thought I'd never do.
So that's kind of what I wanted to bring you on and talk about a little bit tonight is becoming a writer for about fishing. Like for people who don't know, what does that look like? Like what goes into that? And people say they can't do it, but how can they get started if they really want to do it?
Uh, The main thing is you write about what you know.
Hmm.
Now, I'm not going to write something about physics because I'm lost. So, but when you write about what you know, you're letting somebody into your own thought patterns. Um, I can't write what you write because you have your own ideas, how you do things like that. Um, I'm trying to share what I've learned over all these years. I'm an old guy. So what I've learned over all these years as to the experiences I've had, the adventures. Of course, I write when we go to the classic. That's
Hmm.
something totally different. So I try to write from my perspective as a guest and what I see instead of going behind the scenes with some of the other things that there's plenty of coverage talking to each angler about what they do, but it's more about what I learn, what I see. Um, and me, I went in kicking and screaming. I said, I can't do this. The editor of our local newspaper got me in, and she kept coming to me and saying, I need somebody to write a sports column. Can you write it for me about fishing? I said, I can't write. I can't do this. And it took her about a year to convince me to write her one story. I said, look, the only way I'm going to get her off my back about it is I'm going to have to write one, let her see I can't do this. And so I did, wrote the first one, sent it in. I asked her, well, how is it? She says, oh, it's great. It's due next one's due Monday morning by noon. I said, ah. So, and I've been doing that now ever since.
So I guess my first question is, what are some challenges that you've come up against in writing about fishing? I know for me personally, like coming up with content is like one of my biggest challenges. So I'd just be interested to hear what some of your challenges are, you would say would be.
Honestly, that is my biggest challenge. It's coming up with the content.
Hmm.
Um, if I don't get out and go fishing, I can't write about it. I have to understand what's going on that time of the year when I'm writing a story and what it's going to cover. So
Mm.
I'll go with a lot of the um, things that are working for me because if it, I'm not going to write about smallmouth fishing at Smith Mountain Lake, not because I don't want to, but I just haven't done it. So
Hmm.
I'm not going to write about it because then everybody's going to look and say, this guy has no clue. Um, it's like,
Yeah, I could see that. I just had, I kind of have like a story with you. It's like when I started writing for the Bass Castle, I told Brian, I said, I can't do this. And he's like, sure you can. I was like, I don't think I can. He goes, well, just try it. So I sent in the first piece. And he's like, dude, you got some talent. And I'm like, writing was not my strong suit in school. It wasn't. He's like, no, you got some talent. And I said, well, if it's something I'm writing about that I enjoy and I love, like, and I'm addicted to really, then it comes natural to me. He's like, well, you're going to keep doing it. I'm like, okay. So doing it
same
every.
here. Same thing here. I love fishing. So it's easy to write about it. It's just finding that certain little thing that the content for the story that I want to write. It's figuring out what angle you want to take, it's like I can write about anything that I do, but it's just making it so that the reader can grasp it and understand what I'm doing and feel what I'm trying to explain to them. The new story that's coming out is about the lipless crankbait. It is one of my best baits, especially in the winter.
Hmm.
Most people don't think about it. They say the fish are slow, they're not going to hit it. And I'm sorry, but they will jerk the rod right out of your hand. And that
Yeah,
tells me they are aggressive when it comes by them.
and that's kind of what I wrote about in my early winter series. Is like they're still aggressive. Like people want to slow down and like have the minnow and the jigging minnow and everything like that, but they're still aggressive. They'll hit a jerk bait just as good as anything. Um, and the lipless crankbait, I actually did a story on that in the fall because a lot of people forget about it in the fall as well. So I love throwing a lipless crankbait all times of the year because it works. They just get bit. I don't know what
Oh,
it.
they do. And I love it. Um, I love a jerk bait, especially in winter. I'll throw it all year round, but winter it seems to shine even more. A
Mm-hmm,
lot of people will say spring. I think winter is its best time for a jerk bait, suspending jerk bait.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it really depends on you know a lot of things, and the cadence is the biggest thing. I think in the wintertime, depending on what if the fish are aggressive or you know if they're lethargic, how long you have to pause it for, and get a jerkbait that suspends really well, and kind of floats as well. I kind of did a, I guess I did a podcast last week about the suspending jerkbait, um, and just some things you could do to kind of entice the fish to bite it more in the early winter. So, yeah, I agree with that.
yeah, I loved it. I listen to it all the time. So definitely listen to what you're saying. I mean,
Yeah, a lot.
I've been fishing for 50 some years. Well, I started in my mama's belly fishing on the dock. So I've been fishing ever since, but you're never too old to learn.
Mm-hmm,
And I mean, I'm listening to everybody that tells me something. If it's not something I do, then it may be something I may want to pick up
mm-hmm,
because jigs was never one of my big suits. Never. My buddy, uh, he fishes a jig religiously. And I got out with him, and all he kept saying was, throw it out, fish it, you'll learn it. So I got on the boat with him. I'm throwing the jig out. I'm hitting this, I'm hitting that. I'm getting to figure out what's what in the water. And now it's a natural thing.
See, I'm the same way with the square bill crankbait. Like, I had a mentor of mine in college, Russell Nixon. I don't know if you know him. Um, he was like, you need to throw the square bill. And of course, I was trying out for Liberty's team at that point, and he was like, throw the lip or throw the square bill. You're gonna catch fish. And I was like, I don't really want to. That's not my style. But I stuck it in my hand all day. Ended up winning from the back of the boat, our um, like our tryout. So I was a believer ever since, and that's like one of my go-tos when I go out there. It works all year round. I don't care what you say, how cold the water is, they're gonna eat it. Um, but yeah, I have that same thing with the square bill crankbait. It's that confidence feeling, and you just learn how to fish it and the nuances of it. That that's my go-to when I'm on the water. And they're like, "You're crazy for throwing it." It may be wintertime and I'm still chucking it around, but if they're hungry enough, they'll eat something like that.
Yeah, oh, I'm throwing a square bill now.
Hmm.
I mean, I haven't stopped. It's just something that's part of that arsenal that you use.
Hmm.
Uh, if I'm going through a lot of stumpy feel, if it's not the jig, it's going to be a square bill. And I
Hmm.
learned all my tricks from a crankbait from John Cruz. I would pick his brain apart with all the baits that were out there that he was putting on the market so that I knew what he was thinking when he built it,
Hmm.
and that gave me the insight of how to do when I was throwing it out there, what I wanted to come around, how I wanted to hit. But, I mean, people don't think about it, but if the, if a pro designed a bait, don't ask him how to fish the bait. Ask him how he's fishing it and what he's looking for, and that's going to tell you a lot more about it than just saying how do you fish it. Well, you throw it out, you roll it back, you run into this, and you run into that, and that's it. You know,
Hmm.
it goes out, it hits this, it's going to dart to the side and then roll a little bit and wobble out as it comes around, and that entices that bass. Then now I know what it's doing down there, and it that little bit of knowledge goes a long way.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I wish I was, Aaron Martens was still around because I am just so intrigued with the drop shot. I want to know a lot. I want to fish it, be able to fish it effectively the way it's supposed to be fished. But I just get so frustrated because I'm not getting bid on it. But I'm like, if I had Aaron Martin sitting here talking to me and like, explaining this is what it's doing on the bottom, like this is how you work it and fish it, I feel like I'd be a little bit more confident throwing it, you know, and not being so frustrated if I'm not getting bid on it. And maybe it's nothing I'm doing, and maybe they're just not eating it that day. I just, I'm the same way. I want to know how that bait was created, why it was created. Even if it's a rig, I want to know the ins and outs of it.
Yeah. Now, a lot of times on the drop shot, you're working it too much.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm
Yeah,
guilty. Same
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I was watching a video that Aaron Martin. It was an old video, but he said most of the time you don't even have to do anything to it. Let the water, the current, or you know whatever that bait's doing, because it's doing a lot more action on the bottom than you think it is. And I'm wanting to sit there and shake it, shake it, shake it. And they're like, don't do that. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, something new every day. Um, but no, that's the thing too, is, studying and learning and always learning is huge for me. I want to learn a lot of these new techniques like the free rig and, all those. I don't even know, the Jinka rig, I think is
Oh,
one.
shh,
Um, I want to learn all of that.
shh, don't tell anybody about that one.
Yeah, I had Dennis Stump. I talked to Dennis Stump that makes the drop
The rattle chop.
rattle shot. And he's like, "This is a sneaky one. Don't tell anybody about it." And I was like, "Okay, I don't, I don't really fish it, but I might start fishing it." He's been catching them up at Smith a lot too, so I have to pick his brain some more as well. But
Oh,
yeah, it's all about learning and just trying new things that you're not comfortable with and getting comfortable with it. Um, that's what I've learned so far in my young career.
and that's it. You have to learn and then adapt it to you.
Hmm.
Now, just because the pro tells you to do it this, remember that's what works for him. You do what you do with that same bait, and
Yeah.
it gives that little bit of extra twist to it that no one else can do.
Hmm.
My
Yeah, that's what I learned. So I'm a really big shaky head fisherman as well. Since I fish out of the back of the boat a lot of the time, I've come to love the shaky head. And you can tell, you can have people tell you how to fish it multiple times or multiple ways and multiple, you know, different styles, but you really have to hone it into what you're comfortable with, your situation that you're dealing with, and really what the fish is, the speed the fish want it, or the if they want you to shake it or just drag it. I've learned that a lot too. But yeah, it's really just molding your your style into that bait, and you will be successful with that bait, and continue to be successful with it.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I love a spinnerbait. I do great with a spinnerbait. My little brother, not so little anymore, but my little brother kills me on it. It's just something about it that he has learned for himself on how to use it. And I can do the exact same cast, the same retrieve. It doesn't work, but he's going to get bit and I'm not. No rhyme and reason why, but it's just
Yeah.
something he does.
Yeah, there's some things that, my fishing partner is really good at that I'm not, and I'll tell him that I'm like, I don't come. He could be catching them all day long on it, and I'm like, I'm not gonna go that route because I don't feel comfortable with it, and I'm not, you know, I want to do what I'm comfortable with. Sometimes that bites me, but if he's catching them and I'm netting them, you know, a good
Yeah.
net, good. So um, it's just having the confidence and throwing what you know, and if it's not working, switch it up. And I'm okay with trying new things because I learned my fish. So um, that's what I think. And some people are better at things than I am. I'll be honest with that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, I fished a tournament with my buddy. He's fishing a jig. He's up in the grass, around the lily pads, all of this, throwing up there. That's what he loves to do. I'm fishing behind him. I'm not getting anything.
Hmm.
I reach down, I grab the lipless, I fire out in the middle where no one's covering any water at, fire out there, catch a 6 pounder. He goes ballistic when he knows that I've got fluorocarbon line on. He says, "Oh my God, it's going to break off." And I'm, no, no, I know how to fish. We get it to the boat, and he's all happy and everything, but it, sometimes it's doing what others won't do, taking the chance of throwing it out where no one else is thinking about going. Uh, Today, with the side scan and down scan and side view and all this kind of stuff, there's plenty you can see without having to go to live scope.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've noticed that too. Is always look if I'm in the back of the boat, I'll ask whoever I'm fishing with to keep that back unit or that console unit up, just to see even if it's on the map, I want to see where I'm at.
Yeah.
Um, whether it's a point I can throw out to, or there's a break somewhere, I want to catch any. I don't want to say advantage, but it is an advantage. Just to see if they're not throwing at it, is there a possibility there's a fish sitting off a break that he didn't either catch, or I'll get lucky and catch one. So I'm always doing that map study as well. I think that's important for people from the back of the boat, is even though you don't have first priority of where you want to throw, always throw behind you, because a lot of 9 times out of 10 the front guys miss a lot, um, and throw where they're not throwing. That's a huge thing with co-angling, um, that I've learned over the years.
I mean, I co-angled. I fished as a co-angler in the BFL. The, the worst thing I ever had to do was net a 10-pound bass for my boater. I
Yeah.
almost had a heart attack because I was so afraid that I was going to mess up. I net all the time. I
Hmm.
have no problem netting, but I was the most nervous person in the world trying to get his 10-pound bass in that net. But I knew not to jab at it too. You put it in, you just scoop it, kind of. But a lot of people just jab that thing down in there.
No. Yeah. Yeah, I actually had that happen with my buddy when we were actually fishing the Bass Cast series. He had caught an 8-9, I think, out of Smith Mountain, and we thought it was a 10 pounder. The thing came up and jumped, and we were like, "Oh, we got to get the net." His net actually broke in my hands,
Hmm.
so I have one end of the net in one hand and the actual net part of it in the other. And he's like, "Are you gonna get it?" And I'm like, well, "I'm gonna attempt to." So I'm leaning so far over the boat to get it in, and finally I scoop it and get in the boat, and I was like, you have no idea how nervous I was, for one, falling in, two, losing this fish, knocking the hook out because I'm trying to just flail over the side of the boat. He's like, well, we got it in, and I was like, yeah, it was more nerve-wracking for me than you. So he was like, well,
You owe me a
I'm glad you got it in. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Did you tell him he owed you a dinner for that one?
Yeah, so actually we got big fish of the tournament, which, I mean, we had 3 fish for 15 something, so it was a good day.
That was a good day.
And it was in the fall too, so it was a really good day.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Um, that was probably the best day we've ever had on Smith, I would assume. Um, but yeah, I said, now you owe me dinner. He said, well, I got you some money. I said, okay, that's fair enough. But as we go back to, writing about fishing, so for someone who doesn't, thinks they can't write for about fishing or, write about techniques, what are some tips and tricks that you think those people or want to let those people know about writing and, you know, if that's something they're interested in getting into?
Even if you're not interested in getting into it, but you just like to try your hand at it to see how good you are. Write your story, do it from your perspective about what you know, what you've learned. That's always the best way. Use something like uh, Microsoft Word has the spell check and grammar check. That is a big tip. A lot of people will write it, and it doesn't take much to have a word that's off,
Mm-hmm.
but it'll make the whole story sound terrible. Just that one little word. Um, I wrote my story, this last story. I reread it before I sent it to Brian. Brian publishes it, has it up and asks, how does it look? So I'm going through reading it again. I tell it, hey, would you change this word for me because it's wrong? I still miss it. Spell check does not tell you if your word is spelled, will tell you if it's spelled wrong, but if it's spelled wrong but is the right word spelling, it won't. But now if you use grammar, the grammar checks and everything, yes, it will. Um, Write it, send it to somebody, see what they think. Brian is always looking for writers. If you think you can do it, write about something you know, send it to Brian. You can get on the website, the contact me part, send it to Brian. He'll tell you if it. He'll send it to me and say, "What do you think?" Because Brian can't spell.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, Brian's gonna like it. Which I really didn't think he was gonna like my first story, and he was like, "This is gold," and I was like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna keep doing it." And I've done it ever since. So,
Yeah.
and he is always looking for writers. Definitely, if you're interested or you know anyone that's interested about writing anything really, in particular outdoors, fishing, whatnot, encourage them to get involved. If you want to write for the Basscast, go on the website and hit contact us, and you'll get Brian. Send in an entry, and he'll get back with you, I'm sure, on that one.
Oh,
Uh,
he'll send it out and ask, "What do we think?" Also, because it's like, you know, he's busy. He works a job.
mhm,
Um, I've read a lot of stories and told him this is this, and sent it back to him and told him what I thought. And
mhm,
most of the time, it's not very much um that I don't think is right. Maybe a word that isn't spelt
right,
right or something. I don't, just something or one sentence that doesn't make sense. Just I'll tell him how I'll rewrite it and say, ask him how does this work, and then
right,
they send it back to the writer. I'm just like an editor. I'll
mhm,
send it back and say, what do you think about it this way? If they like it that way, yes. If they don't,
yeah. That Brian's had to send, I think, one of mine back because he had an issue with like, did you mean to say this? And I'm like, it was probably at like 11 o'clock when I was writing this, so probably not. But I just fixed it and sent it back to him. That's all you have to do.
yeah.
Um, But no, if you would ask anybody in my circle, whether it's friends or family, especially my mother is actually a high school English teacher. So, and she had me in school, and she did not expect me to be, writing articles for people or, doing my own podcast. That was a whole nother ball game. If you want to get into podcasting, that's a whole nother ball game. You just have to be comfortable with public speaking and really just speaking on camera. But yeah, if you would ask anybody in my family, they're like, "You're doing what? Like you're writing?" Yeah, it's something I enjoy, and they've read it too, and they're like, "Wow, this is actually really good." And then it's like, "Well, appreciate that."
I mean, come on. I almost didn't graduate because of English. So, I mean,
Same
I
here.
would have never thought that I'd be writing. But Brian, the editor of the newspaper said, it just comes across so great.
Hmm.
I said, okay. Brian read it and said, he says, well, it sounds good. And I'm going, really? Or are you just looking? But every
Yeah.
time I send in a story, I ask him to read it because of the fact that I want to make sure it sounds good before. I don't want
Hmm.
him to send it to him and he just publishes it. No, I don't want that.
Right. And I do the same thing. I'm like, Brian, you need to read this because either I'm doing it late at night or I'm exhausted, and I'm like, oh, I'm literally just getting it in at the nick of time. So I want him to read it, make sure it makes sense, um, and usually he's like, oh, you're good, and I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to transition a little bit into this upcoming year. Right now, it's a little, I don't want to say dull on the fishing side, but we have the MPFL still going on. They just canceled the first day at Lake Murray due to weather. That's going to be a really good event, I think, coming up soon. Um, but we are getting into the flow of Expo season. So, what are some of your expectations for Expo season, and which ones are you heading to?
Well, I think the first one really is going to be, what is it, in Greensboro.
Hmm.
Um, it'll be there. And then they come to Richmond. Richmond is always the one I look forward to because it's a local show.
Hmm.
Um, it's not the expo that when I was young that we went to, but that changed when the internet came out. Now, these big manufacturers don't have to be at every little show to get their products out. So that's what people don't understand. We used to have, Lou's in here, and Zebco, and all these people, but they have websites. They have shows that they go to, like ICAST, the Bassmaster Classic, Raid Crest for uh, the Bass Pro Tour. So they have big events that they go to, and they will bring in product not always to sell, but to show.
Hmm.
The selling part they leave to the other vendors that are there, um, like Green Tops would be in Richmond. They would leave it for them to sell the products, but they're there to show you what is available. Um, then they have their pros in there talking to the customers and all like this. Um, but Richmond is what I'm looking forward to the most. And this year we do have Andy Montgomery and John Cruz, so that's a great one for me. Uh, and then we have the East Tennessee Fishing Show. Um, for me, that's a long ride.
Hmm.
That is definitely not one you go to and come back that day. Um, I think it's 5 hours from you to
Um,
there in Knoxville.
yeah. So I actually live in Rocky Mount, so it's actually probably around 3.5 from me.
All right.
Yeah, so it's not too far. I have a lot of family in Knoxville, so and outside of Knoxville. So I'm not sure if I'm going to make it down to the Eastern Tennessee show this year. I am going to be at the Star City Expo here in Roanoke. That's supposed to be a really good one.
And
Uh,
that's the 1st of February.
that's the 1st of February. I think one or two intertwine with that one. Uh, or what is the word I'm looking for? There's a conflict in one of them. I think it
Yeah.
Augusta maybe.
Maybe I think it's Augusta.
Augusta has one that same weekend, I think. Um, I'm gonna go to that. I go to this year. I'm gonna try to go to like a lot of the open houses, like English Choice. Um, they have an open house here in Martinsville, which is probably 35 minutes from my house. Just to go down there, and I've never been there, so I'd go look around and see what they have.
Ever ever been?
Never been. No.
Oh, it's a beautiful place. I've been there. Hank Parker was there when I was there. He should probably be there again this year.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, trying to get a pretty good lineup going. I think Hank Parker will be there. Maybe Andy Montgomery's going to be there, and Brian Thrift maybe, because I know and Matt Airy, they're all English choice guys. Um,
right.
but yeah, I've never been to the open house. I've been to their actual like store and facility. I just haven't been to an open house.
Oh, all right.
Derek Hudson's actually the one that put me on to Angler's Choice, and I was like, oh, well, I definitely have to go check it out. But yeah, Star City is probably going to be the big one for me. I have to be there anyways. The person that's basically over the Star City Expo got a or donated a booth to our high school team that I'm a coach of here locally. And I'm going to have some kids go man some booths and do some giveaways and stuff like that. So I have to be there for that one. Um, but yeah, I'm like a jack of all trades. I do it all unfortunately. But luckily I have a great support system behind me with my family, and my wife's very supportive of it. So that's good.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
But
That's the one I should be able to see you at then.
yep, I'm I don't know how many days I'm gonna be because I think it's 3 days. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think Saturday's probably gonna be the one I'm at.
Right.
Friday I'm working, unfortunately, but um maybe Saturday. Um, but definitely one of those days. I'm trying to think. I really want to go to the Bassmaster Classic, but you know,
It's Texas.
pretty far from us.
Pretty
Unfortunately,
far.
I should have went to the one that was in Knoxville, but you know, life's crazy and things get in the way, and just couldn't make it. I did go to the Elite Series that was on or at the Tennessee River in Knoxville. That was a excellent trip where Gussie won it. That was pretty cool. Um, but I haven't made it to like a big like the classic. I want it to come back to Knoxville, which I hope it will.
It
Um,
should.
um, Another thing I'm thinking about going to is when I guess it's the BPTs coming to Smith next year.
Heavy hitters, yes.
Coming to Smith, I really want to make it to that. I have I'm fangirling over a lot of the pros that I've never met before, so that'd be a fun time to just go meet them and talk to them and get some experience. My brother actually really wants to go. He's getting into fishing pretty heavy, and he wants to go watch it and do all that kind of stuff. And I said, well, it's not really a lot of watching, but it's fun just to go interact with people in the fishing industry. But yeah, those are what I'm looking forward to this year. Now, if I make it to all of them, depends on what's going on in life, and that
Yeah.
really on a lot of things.
Well, it's like I went to Oklahoma for the Classic last year.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't think I'm going to Texas because I got to fly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had a 12-hour layover in Charlotte because we were late getting in. They had the wrong time. The gate was when the flight was leaving, and we made it there, and the gate was already closed, and the plane was pulling away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was 12 hours inside that airport. It's like I don't want to do that again. You can't take anything really, and
Right.
you're definitely not going to be able to bring back a lot of things that just can't go on an airplane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's like I want to go to one that's like driving distance for me. Knoxville's perfect. I mean, 3.5 hours, 4 hours, like you can't beat that. That's like driving for me really to Williamsburg and back.
Yeah.
But to Williamsburg. Um, but yeah, that would be my idea. Uh, when the classic comes back, if it comes back to Knoxville, which I would be ashamed if it didn't. And a place like Gunnersville, like that's not too far from us either. Uh, Definitely a day.
Hartwell's not that far.
No, Hartwell's not either. I almost went there in college, but ended up not going because I had schoolwork. Like, why wouldn't I go? Um, but yeah, I got to go a lot of places in college that I probably would never get to go again, which was cool. Um, Shout out Liberty University bass team. I'm hoping to have them on soon. Some of the guys from them
Oh,
are there.
definitely.
Um, but Bruce, where can everybody find you on social media? I know you have social, and where can they find you?
Not this old guy. Um, well, of course, Bruce Callis or Facebook, and at BASSFISHINNNVA, Bass Fishing NNVA. Um, on Instagram, X, I
Mhm.
think that's the same as Threads. I'm
Mhm.
also on TikTok, for now, if it
Yeah,
doesn't get shut down.
yeah. But okay. Well, go check Bruce out if you guys haven't already. Bruce, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. I know it's a little bit late. Appreciate you coordinating with me. Definitely have you on again. It's been fun. But we until next time, we will see you guys later.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Yeah.